Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one. Welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Payne, my producer for the night, as always, the great Mr. Craig Gibson. Thank you very much. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 26th day of November, 2024. And if it's Tuesday, it's Maritime Tech Matters. We encourage that you, if you're driving, as always, driving home or when 5 o'clock, getting off move, and tuned in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is that you are trying to get. Make sure you get there safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. And that's how we're rolling today. We want you to drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for the night's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin, Shantia McBride. That's my girl. We used to get her all weekend. And her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. Fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site, 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all one word, all lowercase, .com. The 3 locations are East Street South, and of course, that's where my girl Joy is. She's the pharmacist on East Street South. We get Charles Sanders Highway. Joyce be there sometimes too, but not too often. And of course, we got Expressway in downtown Freeport. This one, that's where my big cuz Stephanie is hang out. Hey, Steph, what you saying, girl? So give her a kiss for me whenever you go in that one in Freeport there called Island Care Pharmacy. Find Steph and give her a little smooches for me, her cuz. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. At BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime services. That's a whole 9 yards, a whole gamut. That's how we roll. Good night, Auntie May, my good Auntie May, our number 1 fan on Maritime Matters. I say good evening to you. That's my Auntie May, up there in Freeport, 91 years old and going strong, people. Let me tell you something. I just spent the past weekend at Freeport. Of course, I went over for our cousin, Miss Bellamy funeral. That's Bellamy Sanders. It was an awesome occasion, I can tell you. I am so happy that I was able to make it. Hanging out with the 3 Sanders arm of our family. That's the offsprings of cousin Frederick Sanders. And of course, all of these people have passed, so may God continue to bless their soul. The offsprings of cousin Olive, better known as Lady. I grew up calling her Lady, and boy, look here, that's the most fun-filled woman I know. Lady wasn't easy. And of course, cousin Rufus Sanders. That's brother and sister, 2 brothers, 1 sister, and the litany of offsprings were there. And whilst I mentioned the name of brother Rufus Sanders, his lovely wife, Miss Mary, was present and accounted for with all the children, Joe and Shirley and Lil Daddy, all the children. And then we had Kenneth and that clan, and then we had Paula May, Ella, Gertrude, Margaret, man, everybody, Chrissy, Caddy. Hey, we were having ourselves a ball, eh? So, of course, whilst at Freeport, I took the opportunity to hail up my number one fan, Annie Mae. Yes, of course. We sat and we talked for 4+ hours on Saturday evening. And guess what? Annie Mae ain't stopped talking yet. Listen, people, let me tell you something. My Annie Mae is so loaded with details and information that I was like one of her students back in the day, just sucking up all that information. Annie Mae girl, I am so proud of you. And how at age 91, you was able to remember and discuss in detail all of what life was like when you and Mommy them was growing up in South Andres. And guess what, dear listener? All them years Annie Mae spent in South Andres, from the time she was an infant, and she born in South Andres, straight up to when she got married, and she was over 30 years when she left South Andres. And all that time, Annie Mae can't catch crab. You believe that? Boy, I must kill myself laughing when Annie Mae tell me, Glenn, you know I can't catch crab. I said, man, Annie Mae, man, don't do it, man. That can't be true. I was so ashamed because, I spent 2 years in Andrew. I started school in South Andrews, in Deep Creek. As a little boy growing up, I thought everybody in the whole of Andrews could catch crab and cook crab and dough and cut field and things like that. Because at the age 4 and 5, me and my brother had our own crab pen. But no, not my Annie Mae. Annie Mae tell me she grew up soft. I said, girl, Annie Mae, you're soft. You ain't no real honest woman, although I know that's all you know. I mean, I really almost asked Annie Mae if she really from Long Bay Keys. But I could tell you one thing. You want to witness the sharpest mind from back in the day? Try sitting down and having a chat with my Annie Mae. She will blow you away with her precision memory. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. And on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 17:05. And that's 5:05 p.m. Well, it's only 5:16 now, so we done started. We up. Well, of course, we loaded. Can't wait to get into the details. And we are on every Tuesday night at 5:05 p.m. here on Love 97 FM. The purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to maritime in the Bahamas, and of course to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities. And boy, we could talk about opportunities tonight in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and the international maritime fields. Of course, we ain't touching nothing international tonight because we got too much domestic stuff to cover. And guess what? Boy, look here, y'all in for a show tonight. I can tell you, you do not want to miss none of this. The phone number to call us, if you want in on this discussion, and we encourage you to call in tonight, is 326-8255. Again, that's 326-8255. If you want to hear a replay of this show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to YouTube and on your electronic device, type in the search box, Maritime Matters Bahamas, and you will see all of our shows from Timbuktu days showing up. So you could pick, choose, refuse. And of course, this one, once we put it up tonight, will be the first one you see. And then the one last week will be next and yada, yada, yada. You know how it go, right? So let's talk maritime. Hello. Tonight, we have a litany of topics to bring alive. As you may very well be aware, there's a whole lot going on in maritime. Topics we aim to engage tonight are as follows. We're going to start off with opportunities for Bahamians in the maritime industry. And I want to tell you all some success stories tonight as we go on. I consider myself to be a success story in maritime. My boy that currently lives in Florida, T.O. Devaney, a very success story. My dog who basically is my partner, but he ain't called for a long time. He in the Junkanu now. He dealing deeply with this Junkanu. Herbert Bain, a very success story. Albert Ambrister, of course, success story. We got a litany of pilots in Freeport Harbor. I talking about pilots that used to be Defense Force officers. And I talking mainly about people who was in Defense Force, people who came around the thread that I treaded in and out of the Defense Force and continuing in the maritime sector. Eh? Those 4 pilots, we'll call the names. You all know them. Orlando, Charlie, Doc, what's your name? Thurston, Sean, and of course my good friend Tony Archer. We'll talk a little bit about them. We can talk about some people who've been to Cal Maritime Academy, California Maritime Academy. We're going to talk about various candidates from SUNY Maritime up in New York, State University of New York. We want to mention LJM Academy because we now know that LJM had some people pass through their doors and are now serving big-time positions on some of these cruise ships. Gadites Maritime, they were here from day one. That's my boy Glenn Lightburn and his crew. They've trained thousands of people when it comes to safety on board ships, some of those STCW courses and all the rest of that. So we can't do without mentioning Gadites Maritime, Shipmates Maritime, same thing. They're the ones that are training up a lot of people. They do A&B license, they do STCW 4 core modules. I know what else they do, but I know they do DORSET, right? They also do ISPS, I understand. So shipwrights, or Shipmate Maritime. They are doing some big things in maritime and helping out a lot of Bahamians to get certified and qualified to work in certain areas in maritime. Other certified Bahamian watch officers, certified Bahamian watch ratings. They serving on ships as watch officers and watch ratings. Means they had to certify before they could do that, eh? And thousands more potential RBDF personnel. We got our biggest, or should I say our largest, maritime institute in our country is the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. So we got over 1,000 heading for 2,000 persons in that organization. That should all be maritime professionals. And if they're not, they should all be given the opportunity to become maritime professionals. And I want some of y'all RBDF people to call in tonight. Let me tell you all how you all supposed to be treated, how you all with an opportunity supposed to be presented to you all, and you all supposed to be able to pick, choose, and refuse, even turn it down if you want to. But the opportunity should be made available, eh? That's what I'm talking about tonight. And then we want to talk a little about the Defense Force itself, that fleet of ships. And we want to compare them with a commercial fleet of ships right here in our country that are doing very similar runs. They use the name marine tankers, but those slew of tankers that go from Clifton Pier to the Family Islands, they also go to Cuba, they also go to Jamaica, they also go to a place in Turks and Caicos, and they all operate out of Clifton Pier. But that fleet of ships, they're all tankers. Why are they lasting forever? While Defense Force buying ships all the time, and the ships last for 10, 15 years max, instead of 40, 50 years max. We want to talk about the difference and why one could do it and the other can't do it. And simply put, the Defense Force personnel are non-certified. They are unqualified. And that's part of the reason why the Defense Force fleet is being treated the way it's treated, run down, don't last long, spending these millions and millions of dollars buying these ships, and they're not being properly maintained. And I can tell you that. I used to be on the Defense Force. I know what they're doing outside. I know what they're doing inside. So I am qualified to talk about this. And some of you are qualified to talk, but I want you all to call in. So, and we can juxtapose that against marine tankers, which is a local operated commercial fleet of ships, of tankers, which are far more intricate than patrol boats, eh? And we'll see why there is such a big difference. And those are things that we want to address. Another area we want to go into is renewable energy in the Bahamas. What are we doing when it comes to renewable energy, the mandate for 2050, the mandate for 2040, the mandate for 2030. And we do have mandates and we do have pledges. So the Nassau cruise port said that they're going to supply LNG to cruise ships. This idea is totally unsustainable, people. Yeah, you may get it for 10 years. But the world is moving away from fossil fuel. The world is moving away from LNG happen to be a fossil fuel. Yeah, it's only about half the damage than the bunker C and those really bad diesel and all them. Yeah, but it's still fossil fuel, and we still. So why would NCP want to move to LNG as opposed to moving straight on the solar? Excuse me, straight on the solar, which is not a source of energy that emits carbon into the environment. So solar is the way to go for the future. Solar is the way that the whole world, well, mind you, some countries that are not warm enough because they don't see enough sun, they don't get enough sunlight over the course of the year, like up north of 40 degrees latitude. Those countries are turning to wind farms because they don't have no choice. They wish they could use solar, but now they got to get wind farms, and they're getting some big, powerful wind farms. Let me tell you something. These countries are moving, even in the great USA, where we know former President Trump is now going to be the new president come January. All goes well. Even in the great USA, a lot of cities and states have arrangement in place to start to utilize very soon wind turbines for energy, because they too, like the rest of the world, are required to turn away from fossil fuel, So one of the new ships, the Sun Princess, that's going to be using Nassau Cruise Port, the Sun Princess is already equipped with LNG. Now, why did they equip the Sun Princess with LNG? Because ships can't carry they can't have enough solar panels on board to supply those ships. So they need an alternative source in the meantime. But you know what they're going to eventually go to? Either hydrogen, which doesn't emit any carbon. It's going to cost them a little more. They're going to need to store more energy on board. And they got the nuclear out there that they're going to commercialize to some extent. Right now, nuclear provides over 10% of the global energy, even in the commercial world. They're not only in warships and that type of thing and weaponry. They have nuclear plants in various countries in the world, providing electrical energy for communities. And that's going to ramp up a bit, But for those in the north, they're going to be dealing with wind farms, the big windmill thing with this turn by the wind. And once that turns, something else turns, and then they go to the grid and they convert that power on the grid to household use. So in our area, where we deal with solar, because we got it all around, we got more solar in most countries, right? We will have enough solar going on in our country at the end of the day. Now, we just say we're going to solarize Exuma to 80%. Anyway, I'm running on. Let's get on. So, we're also going to talk about how these ships want to plug in, the cruise ships in particular, and the cargo ships when they go to Arawak Port Development or Nassau Container Port. They want to plug in, because when they plug in, they're going to be saving the amount of carbon emission. They're not going to be emitting any carbon once they plug in to shore supply, provided that where they plug into is not a source that is generated by emitting carbon in air. And that's why I'm saying that LNG program for NCP ain't make no sense. Because while the Sun Princess is already equipped with LNG, most of the existing cruise ships are being converted to utilize LNG. And when they use LNG, that's only for the immediate use, because they have a conversion or a section on that LNG where they could use methanol, which doesn't emit any carbon, or hydrogen, which doesn't emit any carbon. And they're now working on putting hydrogen stations throughout Europe and all around the world, right? So ships can go and take on fuel when they reach in these places. So this energy thing, people, as we move forward, it's a serious thing. And we need to plan ahead, not behind. Let's plan ahead. So the hydrogen and methanol conversion are already on those LNG ships that are being made today, like the Sun Princess, right? Now, we want to talk about our power grid in New Providence in particular, but in the Bahamas. Because the power grid is where we get our household electricity from. And we got a solar system that they refer to as off the grid. In other words, you could solarize your house and you don't use any source from BEC. You could do that today if you have the money to put in the solar panels, put in the inverter, and put in the battery storage, make a power wall. You could do that today. Well, it's going to be a bit expensive, right? But some of us could afford it, and some people have done it. And then there's another option. That option is known as a grid tie, meaning you have your solar panels, and they are attracting the energy, and they are sending that to your inverter, and your inverter is connected to your meter that is connected to the grid. And what happens is when you got the sun shining all day, and you actually extracting and making energy, that energy is not stored on a power wall because you don't need no battery. You send that energy straight to the grid, the energy that you don't need to be using, right? Because you're getting too much for your household for those particular hours, those hours when the sun is shining. Because now you got to remember when nighttime comes, the sun ain't shining no more, and you ain't making no more energy. So you're going to have to take from the grid to keep your house going. Although you ain't be using as much because nighttime you use less current, but they have AC going and all that, but it ain't hot no more. It's cool, right? So what we're saying is, in the Bahamas, we don't have the option to tie into the grid. The only option we have is the off-grid option where we got to have a power wall for our house. Because we got to have those very expensive batteries that store the energy. And when night comes, we start using the stored energy. Because we want to talk about why BPL or the government of the Bahamas is not allowing us to tie into the grid, so we don't even need to buy batteries. That's what we want to talk about. I think I know why, but we want to talk about that. No batteries or power wall would be necessary if we could tie into the grid. And we'll be feeding the grid. And in some cases where we got a lot of solar panels on one house, they could be making money because when the meter start getting backwards, that means now BPL would be owing them for that power. And they buying it for cheap now. They ain't buying it at what it's worth. But at the end of the day, everybody wins. You wouldn't need a humongous number of solar panels necessary from the utility provider if homes can feed the grid. For example, what happens is, what I'm being told by one of my good buddies who's an engineer. He told me that, boy, Glenn, let me tell you what's going on here. Nassau is not a big place. And we got so much population that BPL cannot put up enough solar panels to feed this whole island. Well, that's fine. And we don't want BPL to put up enough solar panels to feed the whole island. What we want BPL to do is allow me, you, and everybody else who want to put solar panels on our roof to feed back to the grid so that we could be using the energy we need and feeding the balance back to the grid. Or we could be using some of the energy we need, and when we take back from the grid, we still get a BPL bill, but it ain't going to be very high, it could be very low. Plus, the government ain't had to put out all of those, BPL ain't had to put out all those solar panels because we got them on our house for BPL to have access to. So we don't need a space in Nassau with 10,000 solar panels. Because on 10,000 houses, we could already have those solar panels that is tied to the grid. And we'll have one big power system in Nassau, one grid with a bunch of solar panels tied into it, where some people would be feeding to the grid, some people would be taken from the grid. Some people who don't want to put no panel on their house at all, they take it from the grid, but their energy cost is much lower. Plus, the country is not feeling the pinch because we are no longer emitting carbon into the environment. So when you take the amount of carbon that BPL was emitting into the environment, how much ever 1,000 pounds of carbon per week or per month or whatever the case may be, and then you're now emitting zero carbon into the environment, you know what happens? The country will get carbon credits. We will be credited by the United Nations because they have a fund with over $3.7 trillion pledged to it, where when you mitigate the action of emitting carbon into the environment, the amount of carbon that you no longer put in the environment, they put a price on that and they give you that amount of money for saving the planet from carbon emission. And guess what? The Bahamas will be making money for doing that conversion. Plus, the Bahamas will have a lower cost for energy once they allow all business establishments and houses to tie into the grid. Isn't that a big win-win and win situation? Why it ain't happening? We can talk about that a little further because we need to get to the bottom of that because that is something that we, the Bahamian people, need to ensure that BPL is about to push. Because it's so easy to do and it's being done already in the U.S. Many states are doing it because they know it's a win-win. But you know, we got some people in this country who they ain't cutting our electricity costs down. They ain't worrying about no carbon being emitted into the environment. They ain't worrying about the country making carbon credits for the reduction of emission or the cease of emission that we used to put in our environment. They ain't worrying about none of that. They only want that extra money. And plus, you got to watch the government, you know. And I ain't talking about no FNM administration or PLP administration or COI or DNA. I'm talking about the government of the day, whichever administration is in power, because all of those administrations receive heavy funding from taxing the fossil fuel. So if you ain't using no more fossil fuel in this country to create energy, then the government lose all that tax money. But guess what? They may lose the tax money, but they're going to gain the carbon credits because of the reduction or the mitigation of carbon credits that we used to put in the environment. So that's a trade-off. It's just that certain people wouldn't be getting all the money in their pocket no more, eh? Anyway, so as you might imagine, people, we have to do something with causing every single house to have the option to tie into the grid of power we have in our country. We're going to talk a little bit about the congestion that they have in a big city like London. And not only London, they got congestion in most cities, right? But London is taking some steps. By 2030, they're no longer going to have any internal combustion engine vehicle on the streets. If your vehicle uses anything other than battery, they're only going to have electric vehicles. Then you can't bring that in London. You can't drive that in London because the kind of fine they can put on you can't pay. Also, they're charging a £15 per vehicle for any person who lives outside of the central London, and that's most people. You want to bring your car into London, once you hit that border, you could pay that £15. And they getting it by your license plate. They ain't got no boots there where you guys stop it. No. They got cameras, baby. And if you come beyond a certain point and you don't pay that money, they give you 3 days to pay. If you don't pay, that £15 goes to £17.50. In other words, let's say $15 to $17.50, right? And that's if you don't pay within 3 days. But now if 3 days pass and you still ain't pay, that go from £17.50 to £80, 80 quid. And of course, if you allow it to go over 2 weeks, it goes from £80 to £160 because you're taking too long to pay us. And all of that is because they trying to cut down on the congestion vehicles. They trying to discourage people from bringing their car in London, right? And if you got, well, of course, if you don't have an EV or electronic vehicle, you ain't gonna be able to come in London, no, because those who live in London with EV, they got to sell them because they can't drive them on the road. That's how serious they taking this climate change thing in London, eh? And we need to take note because this is the kind of thing we should be doing. And I want you to know that Uber, when you're in London, man, you call Uber so much Ubers around. I just been in London about 2 weeks ago. I can tell you. Every time I try to call an Uber, every time I call an Uber, they was within 5 minutes of reaching me. They're like taxi where you gotta wait half hour. Because so many of them all over the place, the closest one lock onto you and they come into you. So you know that within 5 minutes, you better be ready because that Uber could be outside tooting. That's how they get on. We ain't got Uber in the Bahamas, right? Well, they got it in the States. I don't know if it's that good. Boy, but in London, woo, that Uber, not only London, all over Europe. I can tell you, I've been other places in Europe, and it's the same thing. You go to Italy, you go to Spain, you go to the next place, Holland. Man, look here, Sweden, all of them got Uber can on bad. We're talking maritime, people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and at this point, we want to move to our first break. And when we return, we will engage tonight's discussions. Listen, people, this one gonna be serious. As a matter of fact, I think we could bypass this break. We done, 41 minutes in? We can take one break tonight. So we're going to jump straight into this. And where I want to start is opportunities for Bahamians in the maritime industry. We have quite a few success stories when it comes to people doing well that were exposed to maritime in our country. And I want to start with me. I want to start with Captain Glenn Bain. What maritime opportunities I had to cause me to be, I would say, a successful Bahamian, successful in regards to financial improvement. Because I was a fella born walking the road barefoot. Ain't had much. And my mom used to do whatever she could to take care of us, and she did well. But everybody around us was poor. We didn't even know we was poor. Because we just used to go with what we got and make do the best we could. So I started school in Deep Creek, Andros, South Andros. I born in Nassau. But when I was around 3, I was migrated to Andros, to South Andros. And me, my brother, and my sister, Nimrod and Catherine, we go to South Andros. We were sent to South Andros. And I started school in South Andros. Right there on the bay, when you walk past through the graveyard, if you come in toward the Deep Creek Bridge, You gotta walk. You could walk stay on the main road, or you could go through the graveyard and come straight around the back. But that school, once you get to the next end of the graveyard, was right on the bay there. That's where I went. I started school there, and it was so serious because when I came back to Nassau, I was only 5, and at 5 years old, I could say 1 through 12 timetables. And I know because I used to test my cousin them, and they was like, how you learn all that? But because in that school they had us repeat timetables every day. You had to learn it. That's how serious that was. And I didn't know how impacting that was until I came to Nassau, or back to Nassau, started school, and realized how ahead I was compared to the other children, right? And of course, when I came to Nassau, I went to Wood Rogers Primary. That's the school directly opposite AID on Woodford. Well, almost directly, a little diagonal, right? But that was Wood Rogers Primary, prep number 3. And from there, they sent us to Tatchberry because they was closing down Wood Rogers. That's why I didn't know school today, eh? But it still belonged to Ministry of Education. So they sent me to Tatchberry in grade 4. And they put me in grade 4B. And after the first term, they decided, I think it was 3 of us that came from Wood Rogers, me, Alton, my cousin, and my next, and they sent us to 4A because they realized we do sharp for 4B, right? And we wasn't getting in their business. They say, well, you want to send us to 4A. Boy, and when they sent us to 4A, we was in trouble. Because you had them, Miss Coakley was the teacher, and them sharp, I mean, I didn't know, we didn't know nothing, no students, companion, and learning all them. For them people, them children didn't know all that stuff what they had. And then they knew maths a little better. So we were basically just trying to hold on to 4A. Then we went to 5A, and of course, we went to E.P. Roberts, took the common entrance. But after E.P. Roberts, because E.P. Roberts had just opened up, so let's close it now. I've been to plenty primary schools. Gone to E.P. Roberts. And we were the first set of students in E.P. Roberts, gone straight in grade 6. And from E.P. Roberts, I went to C.I. Gibson, Rattlers. So I was a Rattler in grade 7, and guess where they put me? You do the placement exam, they could put me in 7.5. I had no problems with it, but my brother had a problem with it because he was already in 8.1, and he's one of the smartest students in school, right? So he said, no, boy, my little brother smarter than that. You're going to take him out 7.5. He ain't supposed to be there. Boy, and they review my stuff, and they say, okay, we put him in 7.2. He made a mistake on his marking. So they put me in 7.2. And of course, I got an 8.2, then 9.2. And we took the BJCs. And although I wasn't in 9.1, my BJC results, I got 6 BJCs with C and above. And a couple other people in our class got good BJCs, and some of the people are 9.1, but we beat more than half the people in 9.1. So I believe I was supposed to be 9.1. Not that it made a difference, because when I went to Aaron Bailey, because of my BJC results, I skipped grade 10. They put me straight in grade 11. And let me tell you what failure is like, right? Because I go on in grade 11.4. You know, they had all the GC stream straight up to from 11.1 through must 11.8. But I got in 11.4. Couple of us went in 11.4. And I didn't like Aaron Bailey when I first got on there. So I wasn't paying no attention. I stopped checking for work. I still holding on to my Miss Knowles and CI and all that. So I didn't do too well, right? And what they did is they made me and a handful of people repeat grade 11. Because they wasn't happy with our grades. We wasn't happy with our grades, right? So they put us all and make us at 11.1 now. So we the repeaters. We done gone through this. We're going through this one more time. So we're in 11.1 now. And around that time is when Commodore Swinley came to the Aaron Bailey. And he laid out a presentation saying, we're looking for a few good men to send to England to be officers for this newly formed defense force we have here. And we don't know, I could be looking in the audience right now at the first Commodore. Boy, he had a swing. You know that they were already preparing those senior policemen to be Commodore, right? But I guess they pull that on everybody. And so, well, of course, when I think about going to England, I mean, as a fella, like I say, sometimes I had no tennis the way I had to walk around the yard barefoot. Nobody in my family ever went outside of Florida, right? As far as I was aware. And it's the reality. I say, England? I thought it was like a dream. I didn't even know England really was a real place, right? You only read in books and this and that. So I said, you know what? If they send me to England, plus they get pay me, I need to go to England. Then I start studying. Boy, and I start beating the books. Next thing I know, I come first. And I come first again. That's when I go on to 12-1 now. But, although I came first, when I was graduating in 1979, I only had 3 O levels. I had an A and 2 C's. I needed 5 with C and above to go to England. So you know what I did? I did what a couple other guys did from R&B. I repeated. I go on back in grade 12. So I don't want nobody to think I'm smart, right? I had to keep waking. And of course, I went back and I got my maths and English O level along with another one called technical drawing because but I was able to pass them at C and above the second time around. And so when I went back and I passed them, I was able to join Defense Force as an officer. They sent me straight to England, did no training, because back then they didn't train you in Nassau Force. You went straight to England to do your training. Don't know how to slick your shoe, don't know how to fix your clothes in the drawer, don't know how to drive no boat, never don't know how to navigate. You don't know nothing but maritime until you reach England. So it was really tough on me. And I can tell you, the first 9 weeks, no, it was 6 weeks. First 6 weeks, they have something called PPT, a professional progress test. I took my PPTs, and out of the 11 of them, I failed 9. Because this was a new world for me. I was cold to begin with. You had to go down on the river, learn how to drive boat. You have to get up 6 o'clock in the morning. So I used to drop sleep almost in every class. But you know what? After that first term over, I went to London for 2 months. I decided that failing is not an option. So I decided that every day during that 8-week summer, I would pick up one of my training manuals and I would do a 4-hour study. And I understand some of what I was doing, but things start to come together. So when I went on the ship for the second term, they call it DTS, That's My Training Ship. All those Jamaicans and people from Singapore, Trinidad, all of them beat me. I started beating them. And I was trying to figure out, what Glenn being, would he on something like? How come he, all of a sudden, he doing so good? Man, I came back to college, mashed up my professional test, gone in to be a senior, mashed that up. So when I came back, because of my hard work that I did in the summer, and when I became a senior, they had advanced maths, this thing called meteorology I couldn't understand. They had this thing called, what it was, boy, one thing would call for physics. Because I never do physics and chemistry and stuff in school. I ain't like them smart people, right? And I was struggling. So because I was the best basketball player in the college, right? But look at my time running away. Because I was so good in basketball, everybody in college should know me, right? And I had this junior guy came in to do flight. He came in to train to be a pilot. And they came to do the officers course for pilots. And he and I were very close. But of course, he come out of school with all kind. In fact, he didn't, I think, spend 2 years in college. So he knew physics, he knew advanced maths, he knew all that stuff. And he used to help me out every evening. That's how I was able to get through my academic year. And that's how come I was able to pass that. But that's what I did, right? And then I just run on to tell you all, it wasn't a walk in the park, right? So I did that, but came back. I did 13 years as a seagoing officer in BDF. In a short period, I work in admin as a base vice lieutenant. I work in transport as a transport officer. And of course, I learned a lot when I went to admin about the Defense Force Act, how to apply it, how to put people on charge. And that's what I did and my boss was Roger Rule. And he was so, Roger's my boy. Roger was good. He was the person in charge of admin. And he just made sure, hold my hand and walk me through it. And once he did that, I was able to keep it going, right? And after that 13 years, I was seconded from the Defense Force to the Port Department because the government decided at that time, and that was the government of Hubert Ingram. He came in 92, and in 94, Harvey Sweeten and I were sent to the port because they decided they could let Defense Force start to take over those top positions in the port because apparently they had nobody in the making to take over from Mr. Flowers and Mr. Musgrove, and God bless their souls, right? But Harvey Sweeten and I were sent to the port. And for 5 years, I worked at the port as a deputy port controller. And during that time, I would have got myself certified in the International Maritime Arena, because on the Defense Force, I didn't know nothing but no certification to become a captain commercially. As a matter of fact, when I left Defense Force, I couldn't drive, not even a little ferry boat from Prince George Wharf to Paradise Island, because I had no kind of license. I had to get my A and B license, and then after that, I had to go off to Fort Lauderdale and get my license as a commercial captain up to 3,000 gross tons. Once I got that, the door opened up for me to get a job with this company called Intamago Shipping, where I was able to go and work for 2 years as a ship manager and a relief captain for the two captains that were on those two container ships that we had going in and out of Florida, Freeport, and stuff like that. So I was able to get my feet wet in two kind of ways. As a ship manager, where I had to do the technical management, make sure the crew was properly certified, make sure the ship's licenses and surveys and inspections and all those things were done on a timely basis, and all the rest of it. So I learned a lot about international shipping just by being a ship manager and a relief captain for Intamago Shipping. And then after that 2 years, the doors open up at the BMA. They was looking for somebody to take over Mr. Colin Leggett, who was a British captain, to do port state inspections, inspect cruise ships, tankers, and stuff in the Bahamas. On behalf of the Bahamas was pulling their weight when it comes to ship inspections worldwide. And of course, I applied for the job and I was able to get that job. And that lasted for 3 years. Because after 3 years, I had to sign over for another 3 years. I decided I won't sign over no more. And it got a little nasty, but we were able to separate. At the end of the day, I was able to get out of BMA. And that's when I opened my company, the Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. I didn't open it to do ISPS. But ISPS came around in 2004 the same time, and I was able to do some port facility assessments, and I had a lot of port facilities needed the service. And because of my time in the BMA, doing a lot of traveling to do workshops and to be able to put ISPS into play, because this is something totally new to the world, I had all that knowledge, and I was able to apply that and assist ports like Tropical Shipping, Seaboard Marine, Betty K, Arawak, Steve Doran, Esso, those companies that needed some assistance in NASA. And then there were a couple in Freeport. And we were able to assist them, provide them with the security services, manage the security services, continue doing their audits, and the rest is history. I was able to do well from a financial perspective. Excuse me. And that's how that rolled. That's how I got where I am today through maritime exposure. And there are a couple other people. There's T.O. Devaney. Started out in the Defense Force. Now he's a regional surveyor and a flag ANI. We call it Authorized Nautical Inspector, ANI, for not only the Bahamas Maritime Authority, for Panama, for Antigua and Barbuda, for Belize, for all kind of countries. He's the one who would go on board and do their annual inspections. He's the one who go on board and do their security and safety audits and that type of thing. So he's very busy. He's been making a lot of money. Boy, to you need to share some of the wealth, man. And he started out at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in the U.S. from the Defense Force. As a Defense Force officer, he trained, he did the 4 years, and he did naval architect. So he's a naval architect. He came out of BDF. After he came back, after a couple of years, he decided he wanted to get into the real world of maritime. So he joined up with the Bahamas Maritime Authority. And then he went off to England, and he worked in the technical hub, engineering, as an engineer. And after the BMA, he decided he wanted to get into real surveillance. So he joined Lloyd's Register. And he was one of the persons in Freeport doing dry dock surveys on cruise ships and bulk carriers and the ships that come in at Grand Bahama Shipyard. And I think he's the only Bahamian, I'm sure he's the only Bahamian who ever did that, right? And time went on, he wanted to go private, and now what are he doing? Surveying. And this is a success story based on exposure to maritime. Because if he didn't leave the Defense Force and he was still there, he would have never get this kind of opportunity to be the millionaire he is today, eh? And then we got my boy, Herbert Bain, another one that was in the Defense Force. And he went to Dartmouth, did his training. He came back and he was the deck officer for many years on the Defense Force. He became the ISPS coordinator for the country the same time when I started my company in 2004 because the country needed somebody to take care of ISPS enforcement. And Herbert Bain was the person that was selected. He came and he did a dandy job. But while he was doing all of that, he's still working basically along with Captain Allens in the port department. And he got his certification. Went off to Fort Lauderdale to Maritime Professional Training and Star Center, and he got all of his stuff. And then he did a couple survey courses with Lloyd's List in England, online courses. And he got a small boat surveyor certification, casualty surveyor, authorized nautical inspector from the BMA. And so now he's doing those type of things, very busy, making up a bunch of money. Plus he collecting pension. I know a young man like that could collect. Anyway, he'll be talking the business. And then, of course, we have doing surveys again is another Defense Force officer by the name of Albert Ambrister. He do small boat surveys, he do inspections, he do whatever they want him to do because he knows ships. Like he used to be my captain, so you know he had to be good, eh? And then we got a couple guys in Freeport. Lord, I got a half hour left. Couple guys in Freeport. Orlando Forbes, who was the port director for the past so many years, doing a dandy job. Charles Roll, who's his deputy, and all these guys are pilots. They marine pilots. They bring in the cruise ships, bring in those container ships that go to container port, bring in all the ships that come in and out of Freeport Harbor, which is a very busy harbor, eh? I guess it's the most busy harbor we get in the Bahamas. And then we got my boy Sean Taston and Anthony Archer, who are also pilots at Freeport Harbor. So they're getting the big bucks, they got the big job, but all of them at some point went off to certify themselves in the commercial maritime area. Because, unless you could be on the Defense Force all your career with the ability to even be a master mariner, with the ability to be a chief engineer on international ships. But if you don't get that exposure to do it, you ain't gonna know nothing but it. You could be lost and then you just stay broke all your life, right? Anyway, Defense Force ain't that bad. But anyway, we have loads and loads of room for employment of any maritime certified BDF officer or rating. Example, officers in rating should be given leave with pay to serve on commercial ships in order to attain their relevant STCW certification. Because part of your certification, you have to sail on international. See, the thing is, Defense Force vessels don't have to comply with the SOLAS, with the MAPOL, with STCW, with load line, with the tonnage conventions, with that thing name, anyway. So these conventions that you need to know in order to run your ship in accordance with, you don't get that opportunity in Defense Force. So if you really want a license for commercial, you need to go to sea commercially for specified periods according to the STCW code. And that's the only way you'll be able to do these things commercially, right? So what I think the Defense Force need to do is the Defense Force need to tie in commercial certification with job placements and, of course, RBDF promotions. So if they want to make you the CEO or the commanding officer or the captain of a vessel, be it 60 foot, be it 90 foot, be it 160 feet, it doesn't matter. You go in order to be a captain, you need to at least get your commercial certification for captain of vessels under 500 gross ton. And then after that, get your commercial certification when you want to go on a bigger ship for captain up to 3,000 gross tons. And push come to shove, fellas still want to go further. Defense Force would be encouraging him to go and get his master mariners, his chief mate and master mariners. Give him the opportunity. Because once he get that, and he retires from Defense Force or even resigns from Defense Force, the country is gaining benefit of that person being certified in this area. And at some point, we need to have enough certified people in this country to take on those 700-800 jobs at Grand Bahama Shipyard, to take on captaining and engineering all of these vessels we have in the Bahamas, like mail boats, because they big and spanking now, and they're not the old wooden sloop that used to go to the islands. No, these are steel. These are fully equipped, and they need proper attention. So if you have a defense force loaded with certified people, as those people retire and resign, they could move straight into those areas, right? No problem at all. Then we could have at least 2 officers, and this was brought up when I was working with the BMA. At least 2 officers on a rotational basis, on a 2-year rotational basis, going into the technical hub of the BMA in the London office. I wish they would come to Nassau, they could do it here too. But you could assist the BMA, because Defense Force officers are trained as naval officers. It's not difficult for them to just catch on once they get in that office, because it wasn't difficult for me. And I know different from these other brothers. Some of them smarter than me. But let's create that opportunity. The BMA is all for it. So Commodore King, it's all up to you. And if you ain't sure, let me call Dwayne Hutchison, because it's he and I who's trying to push it at the base when a certain Commodore knock it down. And I call him the Commodore name because he don't like people to tell the truth, right? We should have at least 10 BDF persons rotating in and out of the port state inspection regime in this country. We got like 2 port state inspectors. Why? If we got a whole force full of potential people, you go to the U.S. Coast Guard. And I can remember when I was training, when I was training to take over from Mr. Colum Leggett, and he left because he didn't have enough time, and I went to train with the U.S. Coast Guard over a 6-month period. I go like a week here, 2 weeks there, a week here, over a 6-month period. And the Marine Safety Office in Miami is where I was based. Man, I had my own Coast Guard coverall, and when we go to ships, at least 3 to 4 officers, Coast Guard inspectors, would go to a ship to do an inspection. Whether it be a cruise ship, whether it be a cargo ship on the Miami River, whatever the case is, because you got so much things to check. And then when I came back to the Bahamas as a port state inspector, how much people do you think went to the cruise ship? Me one. And there's of 6 and 7 come to the ship in Miami to do the same job. So we need to get serious. And one of the ways we can get serious is by getting Defense Force people certified to a certain extent. And when we get those Defense Force people certified, we want to put them in areas like the port state inspection regime, like the technical hub in BMA, and rotationally, so that the whole force will start to become more certified. And as we start to send persons off to be officers in engineering, which is lacking, which is laughable in the Defense Force. Why we don't have no officer going to Dartmouth to go off and become engineering officers? It's laughable. That's why most of our boats don't make it, right? And then we have, of course, the Cal Maritime experience. We have had Bahamians going to California Maritime Academy on scholarship from the BSA, that's the Bahamas Ship Owners Association, by way of the BMA, right? Had them going and certifying. They're doing a full 4-year program. A full 4-year program. Right? We got a call on producer? Call? Okay. Call you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Hello, Auntie May.
Hey, what's happening, my lady? Auntie May said I must tell you hello. So she's still hearing you, but she don't hear you often.
Auntie May, the love of my life, at 92.
That's right. Auntie May is ticking and talking and moving on. What's happening? How you doing?
Yes, Cap, you know, what you say makes a lot of sense. I agree with you because we're surrounded with water. I think every school, public and private, should introduce swimming lessons, geography, and meteorology to get people aware of the maritime field. Geography, meteorology, and swimming.
That's right. But the main thing we need to do in this country is we need to get our people certified in maritime, because we have a lot of maritime opportunities in this country, and a lot of foreigners have to come in to do them because we just don't have the people who are certified. But we have the whole defense force full of potential. But yet we still only relying on the people that sign on to LJM and all of it, which is fine, and you want them too. But Defense Force should be utilized in LJM to certify their people as well.
I agree.
Yes, darling. So,
Bye, Auntie May.
thank you so much, and it's so good to hear your voice. I will make sure, well, I'm sure Annie may listen, but I'll tell her again that you called to tell her bye and hi. Thank you so much. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's my second most popular fan. She's keep me on tack with Annie Mae. Don't leave Annie Mae out, I'll be in trouble. So we would California Maritime Academy, and that's where two of my daughters went to school, right? Misty Bain, she did shipping operations. She's now a shipping chatterer. And I can tell you, if she didn't get a certification at Cal Maritime, get a Coast Guard exam, sail for many, many months on big ships, she wouldn't have been able to get that job. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. The number to call again is 326-8255. You want in on this discussion? 326-8255. And I'll just go on until we take our break, which will take another 5 minutes. So Misty is doing big things. Anisha Williams, tugboat management operations in Freeport Harbor. She is taking charge of one of those tugboat contracts, making sure the tugboats are operational, making sure that they're properly crewed, making sure that things happening on a timely basis from a maritime perspective. And again, she went to Cal Maritime. We got Donato Bain. He, again, was one of the scholarship recipients at Cal Maritime, and he remained in the U.S. He got married, had a couple of kids, and well, he might have one. I don't know. I think Donato may have more than one, but it doesn't matter because he has been port director in various ports in the U.S. Very sharp young man, doing very well. Ivan Clare. Now this one was an engineer. I think this is the first engineer that was sent to Cal Maritime on scholarship, right? And he did extremely well because after he finished Cal Maritime, he did a sail and he went to China, where he was dealing with shipyards, big bucks, because he was in management. And then I think he's back in the U.S. He's in the U.S. doing some big things. But Ivan Clare is one of those recipients of maritime exposure that did extremely well. And we got people like Jade Evans. Jade Evans being one of the, I know why my phone doing funny things, but anyhow, Jade Evans being one of the scholarship recipients also from Cal Maritime, again through the Bahamas Ship Owners Association by way of the Bahamas Maritime Authority, and she's part of the management team at Nassau Cruise Port and doing very well. And we got a litany of folks too from SUNY Maritime. As a matter of fact, we got more graduates from SUNY Maritime than we had from Cal Maritime. And we talking with people like senior people like Judith Francis. Ms. Francis was the first Bahamian to run the Bahamas Maritime Authority operations. She was the acting director for matter years. Did a dandy job. And of course, we got people like Clayton Curtis, who would have been there a long time ago, and he was the deputy director in Freeport Harbor. He now serves as the director for the Maritime Cadet Corps. And Clayton was a recipient. I think he was a recipient of a Barco scholarship or whatever the case may be. But he went to Cal Maritime back in the day, and I think Clayton is an engineer. Then you got pilot Eugene Monroe, sharp. Went to Cal Maritime, I think, on a Barco scholarship, and did extremely well. Now he's the senior pilot for Nassau Harbor Pilots. Moving down, we have people like Cadrington Colby. Cadrington Colby was the person in charge for water and sewage at Arawak Key when we were barging water in from Andros. And that went on for years and years and years. And that was a critical and crucial part of our watering system in the Bahamas, particularly well in Nassau. Because, Nassau couldn't make enough water for all the people we had. Now they basically taking the water out of the sea, converting that to fresh water through reverse osmosis, and that's how things rolling now with the water. So they no longer need to have somebody at Awaki to deal with those my apology, to deal with those badges, because we don't no longer badge water in from Andrews. And we had the great Cyril Roker, port controller for a few years, work his way from the bottom to the top of the port department. And of course, he's a SUNY graduate, and he's now a pilot in Nassau Harbor, bringing in those big cruise ships and all other ships and stuff like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a lot of success in maritime once persons had the exposure. So we know we can do it. We know we can do it. We just need to get more people being exposed, more opportunities. And that's what this is all about. And we got the LJM Institute, of course, turning out scores of graduates with maritime expertise at the end of the day. Kadites Maritime, that's my boy Glenn Lightbourne. He started out years before these other big fellas started out. And he was basically dealing with safety courses, STCW courses, A and B license, and the 4 core modules with basic safety training and all that stuff. And he's still doing his thing. We have Shipmates Maritime, again, one of the most popular today. Most people go into them to certify, to get their B license, get their A license, and then do the STCW programs. And I'm sure they're going to be offering more like STC, GMDSS probably eventually, things like certification for ISPS, and then these are the institutions that are preparing people, and we could have thousands more by way of these institutions, and in particular the Royal Bahamas Defence Force personnel. Make it mandatory that they go and do certain courses before they could even get past all the training. And then we talk about the Royal Bahamas Defence Force versus the marine tankers situation, right? We won't go too much into that because time running. But the Royal Bahamas Defence Force, again, don't have qualified engineers. Qualified engineers in the sense that in the marine tanker fleet, every engineer, if you could be a wiper or an oiler, you got to go and do courses and certify and sail for a particular amount of time. If you want to be an officer in the engine room or on the deck running the watch, you got to go and do a litany of training, right? If you want to be a chief mate or captain of those big ships, you got scores and scores of training to do. So my thing is, the reason why the fleet of those tankers continue to run without breaking down, and they run way more than any defense force boat, because they have professionally trained persons. Plus, they are under classification societies, so they have to have certain surveys done. They have to do certain things. But defense force, on the other hand, we ain't got no certified people. When it comes to real certified engineering officers in that job, when it comes to real certified deck officers in that job, non-certified. Well, you may have one that I don't know about, but I could tell you, all of them should have an opportunity. And I said have an opportunity because I know of one in particular who was trying to get certified, and he made application to go on a commercial ship, and it was turned down by the then Commodore. And I ain't calling him name because he's my good friend, right? But he turned it down, so that officer wasn't able to get his international certification because it was turned down. And I spoke with Commodore King, and I know he's in with assisting his officers in qualifying. So moving forward, we should see some big things going, when it comes to officers and ratings in the Defense Force attaining their certification commercial with the commercial STCW certification, so that when they retire or when they resign or while they're in the Defense Force, they're doing things from a professionally certified perspective. That's how I see that, right? So we ain't got much time left, but we got to get into our renewable energy. Before we do so, we got to take our first break. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Captain Glenn Bain. You are listening to Maritime Matters. My good producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, is here with us as well. And we're going to move into our first break. This is the real first break now. And when we return, we will take on the renewable energy in the Bahamas. We will take on the London congestion zone fees. And that's how we're going to wrap up. Welcome back to Maritime Matters. I am Captain Bain, your host. And we're in our last segment, second but last. As we tied it up, call, I see you on the line. Our numbers to call in here is 326-8255 if you want another discussion. A very good discussion. I'm just getting hot, but we can really run out in a minute. Call you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Yes, when I'm on the line.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I think your next job, you should run for Parliament.
Me? Run for Parliament? I ain't them kind of things, man. You can't pay me for that.
You should run for Parliament.
I should run for Parliament, but I ain't no politician.
I started listening to you when I was in Colorado.
Yes, sir.
And now in Yamagoa Beach Estate, and you're still talking.
Well, you started to...
You cannot improve the maritime industry.
No?
To yourself, man.
Yeah, but
I'm trying to say.
I try and expose it now so that we could get more people having opportunities.
Yeah, but you got to listen to some other opinions, man.
Well, I ready. Let me listen. You want to give me some more? Because I that's what I'm all about. I like to listen.
And it's not all about the defense force.
Well, let me listen. Talk to me.
The officers of the defense force.
Do you agree that the defense force... The solars? Oh, yeah. I'm getting to the renewable energy again right now, but go ahead.
You're talking about the renewable energy thing.
Yeah.
And you talk about battery storage and all that.
Right.
But the perfect solar system is not only about solar panels.
So, okay.
I had a friend of mine who unfortunately passed on me.
May his soul rest in peace. Yeah.
9 or 10 months ago.
Okay.
Who house ran on solar for years. And I really didn't take heed to what he was saying. Although I was the one who go up there and connect the batteries for him because he didn't know how to do it.
Okay.
He was running on a 48-volt system.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually using local 6-volt golf cart batteries.
Okay, wow.
Now you know that's a thing of the past now, right?
Yeah. The batteries they have now, well, with the inverter, those batteries should be able to give you real electricity for your real appliances.
But this guy never only run his house on solar. He also ran his boat on solar. And on his boat, and also on his house, he had wind generation.
Oh, okay.
Incorporated.
Right.
So when there was no sun, there was wind.
That's right.
And I am on Long Island right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not on Long Island, but on Long Island right now, where I'm from, I am trying to incorporate some solar up there on the old homestead.
Yeah.
And I am looking at some panels,
Mm-hmm.
some storage batteries.
Yeah.
And I'm on a high hill, so definitely the wind generation. Look at all the catamarans that transverse the Bahamas.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the average catamaran, most of them who go cross ocean, they ain't got one solar. I mean, they ain't got one generator. They got two.
Yeah.
Wind generator.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, you have to worry about if the sun don't shine to prevent all this blowing.
Yeah, well, once the ship moving, they could capture wind.
They don't have to be moving.
Well, how they can capture wind if the ship ain't moving and it ain't blowing? Because in this country sometimes we don't have no wind.
What?
In this country, sometimes the wind is extremely low. They ain't gonna give you much turn.
Yeah, okay, in Long Island, where I'm from.
Okay, well,
On the homestead where I'm from.
what the world is doing there, caller. I'll tell you what they're doing. Because solar has been advanced so much, it's cheaper and easier to use solar now than it is to use windmills. So those that don't have the geographical location to receive solar year round, they are using wind farms. I've seen wind farms in Europe. They're now starting to I'm getting ready to put some in the US. But we in the Bahamas don't need wind farm because we got solar year round. We got sun year round. We could store enough energy from when we have sun that when we don't have no sun, we don't even need it.
But to store energy.
Yeah, we could store energy.
On a battery.
But if we tie into the grid, like I was saying, because we already have a grid, electrical grid. If we tie into the grid, we could feed that grid. Plus, PPL could have standby or excess solar power stored, so that when we have overcast and all the rest of that, and nighttime, we still have enough energy to feed the grid, so everybody could continue to have energy. I mean, I've been studying this thing and researching this thing, and it's amazing how easy it is to have all the homes and businesses in the Bahamas tied into the grid, and electricity costs will drop way down to about 25% of what it is.
Yeah, government.
So
the government doesn't provide that facility at the moment.
Well, they're not trying to, because they can cut themselves out.
The big fuel providers making money, they're the big donors.
Plus the government making money off the fuel.
So that ain't going to change no time soon. What I'm saying to you is, do you, and do off-grid, and do you. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point, and I can tell you that I am in the process of converting many of my units right now to solar. I can tell you that, and that's why I had to do the research, eh?
Me too.
Yeah, but the thing is, I wish I didn't have to go off the grid. Because if I go grid tie, I wouldn't have to buy batteries. But the government is not providing that pathway for everybody to save.
I'm telling you, gotta do what you do. About 5 or 6 years ago, I'm in the generator business.
Oh, good.
5 or 6 years ago, I had a guy walk up to the shop he lived somewhere there on Bacardi Road, and he was experimenting with solar, just like my old friend who died on me a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And what he was doing, he came to me, and he said he wanted 180 amp alternator.
Right.
And he was designing a big fan to put on that, to stick high up on his building, to use it to charge his battery. Right. And he was back then living in a triplex that was completely running on solar.
Yeah, well, he was way ahead of the game, I must say, and that's the thing is, with development the way it is today, if he was still around, he could do what he was doing for a lot less cost and a lot easier. So I mean, it's hard. It's sad that we lose those type of people, But you and I, like you say, we can still. I will push and I will talk, and then, like you say, I've been talking from Defense Force days, and I can stop talking unless, of course, God take my breath. But I can talk and I can push. And if government is not going to move, then government is not going to move. And
you have to give some callers a chance to get in. Like I tell you, you don't from Colorado.
Yeah, but when did you not have the opportunity to get in? Because I called a number from the show start.
No, I'm not talking about me.
I'm saying anybody could get in. I'm not stopping nobody from calling in. You making it seem as though if I don't talk, everything will go quiet because ain't nobody calling. So what am I supposed to do?
I don't remember that. I'm just
But you understand my point, right?
I don't think you give the callers I hope you to call in. That's all I'm saying.
But I give out the number, and if they don't call, I can't make them call. And if I don't talk, it'll just go quiet and nobody hear nothing. And you think that makes sense?
Oh man, get along. Do what you do. But everything doesn't evolve around the Defense Force.
But tell me what else it evolves around. I am saying that the Defense Force is the largest maritime entity in this country. That's where I'm coming from. Do you know another entity larger than the Defense Force that deals with maritime?
No, but they are also never been the most efficient.
They've never. That's what I'm saying. They're not efficient. They need to become efficient. Is what I'm saying.
On that note, it brings me back to another topic. When you talk about, I think marine tankers or something, who constantly running, while the Defense Force is not.
Yeah.
And their ship don't break down. When they break down, I know they break down because they're good.
Well, my brother, all ships break down. If you think about Betty Cake, tropical shipping, they may break down once every 10 years. But after 10 years, they can still use their ship up to 30 years. You know much about the Defense Force just like me. How long our ships is running for? We can't use them no more. 10, 15 years and that's it. We took in some ships from the U.S. Coast Guard that were over 30 years old. That's the Fenwick, Stirrup, and those four, right? And we ran them for a good 3 to 5 years. And they were running better than the ships that were 1/3 their age. All because we don't maintain our ships because we don't have certified people to do so. That's all I'm saying.
Then, back in my heyday, I did service on the Defense Force ships with 2 different companies.
Right?
Way back to Science Machinery.
Yeah, Science Machinery in Atlantic. I'm familiar.
And then after that with Atlantic Equipment.
I know. I was there.
I was with both of those companies for, with Atlantic Equipment was like 10 years, and with Science Machinery, I was on contract.
Right.
We would go there.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when the Defense Force had Paxman's engine?
I know about the Paxman's, yes.
We would go there and set up the Paxman engine.
Uh-huh.
And we would go back there, and all the settings would have changed because fellas didn't want to go to sea.
Oh, so there was some sabotage and all that, yeah.
Sabotage.
Right. Well,
it was the same thing happening now. And what also happened back then was the red tape. The Flamingo will come in with a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then San Salvador will come in with a problem. I
just calling names.
That I could remember.
Yeah, I understand.
Not in no particular order.
Right.
So you have to send a requisition. I got to go way uptown to be approved.
Yeah, I remember that.
With one boat needs.
Yeah.
By the time you get that requisition approved, or that order approved, an expert come in with a problem, and you don't rub the part off of that boat to put on the next boat to keep that going.
Right.
So by the time that's approved, now you need to send approval for another part.
Yeah, that's because...
And them ships get stripped just like that.
Yeah, that's because they were doing reactive maintenance. They were not doing proactive maintenance. And that's part of the problem what could be fixed if they certify these people. But anyway, caller, our time is gone. Malaka, thank you so much for calling. I wish you'd call a little earlier, and I wish you'd call next week so we could really get down to this stuff, you know. Thank you for listening to Maritime Matters. And
I was the one who asked you for your number before you go, but I believe I wrote that down wrong.
So,
I was supposed to call you from last week when I called you.
Okay, yeah, I remember the call. I'll give it to you again. 359 1424.
All right, bro. Okay.
Thank you so much, my friend. Caller, you're on Maritime Matters. I see you holding. Our time is out, but let me hear what you're saying, buddy. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I had to hold just to put in my 2 cents. I normally listen to your show, and I want to commend you. You're doing an excellent job. As a young boy joining the Defense Force, I had the privilege of sailing with you as my captain.
Oh, man, thank you so much.
And your good friend who you keep speaking about, he was the EXO.
Yes, Herbie.
one Herbie Ben.
That's correct.
And I must say the Defense Force was great to me. It afforded me a lot of opportunities. And like you said, it is a breeding ground for maritime, whether it be on the seaman side or on the engineering side. And I think with them certifying those engineers, they could go a very long way.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. This is one Jeffrey Brown, a.k.a. Jockey.
Hey, General Jeffrey. Jockey, thanks for the call, man. And you know what I say about engineering officers, because you was one of the engineers who they didn't give the opportunity to become an engineer officer. I know.
Yeah. But nevertheless, everything happened for a reason. It's still affording me a lot of opportunities, and I am grateful.
Most definitely. I am as well, man. So thank you so much for continuing to listen, and thank you so much for your contribution, my friend.
Yes, and I will give a call next week.
Thank you so much, Brother Jay. You take care of yourself, man.
Roger.
Roger. Ladies and gentlemen, we're fresh out of time. I thank my good producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, for allowing me this extra 2 minutes. You've been listening to Maritime Matters. And, on this show, we talk maritime. Our sponsors are Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, and also Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport, and 101 Pharmacy here in Nassau. I want to say good night to my good old Auntie May, who had me going all over the weekend. I want to say thank you to you, our dear listener, for continuing to listen to Maritime Matters. And with that, as always, Maritime Matters, tick, 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 out.